Where I grew up, we were taught the police were your friends. You know, if you need something, turn to the police.
The earliest police forces were slave patrols, designed to capture and return black people to their white owners. Centuries later, white Americans feel safe with police, while black and brown people still feel hunted.
Most white people, the only time they've ever been stopped by the police is when they were speeding. They got a ticket and they went on their way, paid it, and that was the end of it. To be black in a majority black neighborhood in this country means that you have regular, ongoing interactions with the police. You're stopped in the street, you're stopped in your car, you are questioned, you are suspicious. Just by virtue of being you, you're suspicious. And that is just a different way of living than it is to have the privilege of having the police there to protect you.
Black Americans make up just 13% of the population, yet nearly half of people arrested for misdemeanors in New York City are black. Once brought into the system, 90% of those arrested are too poor to pay for a lawyer. Federal law requires that everyone receive legal representation. For those without resources, a public defender is often the only one standing between a poor person of color and the well-funded, all-encompassing force of the prosecution.
Once you're in the system, it impacts your life in every direction. If the arrest is drug-related and you're living in New York City housing, they will evict you, your family, and bar you forever. If the incident happened in your home and a child was there, an ACS claim will immediately be filed. They will try to take your children away.
One thing that I think shocks people when they go into court for the first time in Manhattan, and I'm sure many other places as well, is just how sort of in your face the racism is.
You could sit in criminal court for a morning in Lower Manhattan and just watch in front of you the destruction of the black family. You couldn't watch arraignments and see black and brown bodies, male bodies largely, being sort of marched through the system. And you could sit there for an hour and think that there must be no white people who are committing crimes in Manhattan because it's nothing but black and brown bodies, and you can see them being shackled and cuffed and taken through the system and charged and then taken back into holding cells and then off to jail and prison. And if you leave there and go across the street and sit in family court, you'll watch young black and brown kids being ripped from their parents, being ripped from their mothers, also put into and lost in the foster care system. And then if you spend an hour in housing court, you will see black people being evicted in large numbers from their homes for behavior and for activity that white folks don't get evicted for. So, it's 400 years of this, and it's as it ever was. We're right where we started.
Black people have always told of the dangers they face at the hands of law enforcement and the criminal system. But without pressure from those with money and power, the system does not change. The murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor seem to trigger a reaction from Americans across a wider spectrum. Many are starting to question how policing is done, how much it costs, and how, as a system, it is failing.
Police, fire, and medical.
Every time someone reaches out for help in a public safety way, they're not looking for a badge or a gun response. Most times when people call, they would just want help for a loved one. They want somebody who can come and actually be helpful. Not someone who's going to hit them over the head, or not someone who's going to arrest them, or not someone who's going to kill them, someone who's going to help them.
A good example is the family who calls the police because they have a member of their family who is mentally ill and behaving irrationally, and they don't have any place else to turn. And so they call 911 and the police come. And we've all seen on the news horrible stories in these situations where the police have a very bad encounter with this person out in the community and has led to death in some cases.
I'm gonna shoot you! I'm gonna shoot you! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
They simply are not equipped to do that work.
I was by myself, God damn it, man!
And what reallocation of those resources means is let's give the right people the resources to go out and handle those responsibilities.
American communities spend nearly $2 trillion each year on policing and incarceration that leaves people more likely to return to the system. Reallocation could create a path for healing in families and communities.
It costs over $800 a day to keep somebody in custody at Rikers Island. Over the course of a year, if you took $800, cut it in half. If you took $400 and invested that amount of money into each of the people that you have locked up over the course of time on Rikers Island, and worked on stable housing, education, job placement, providing treatment facilities, whatever treatments are necessary to have somebody be able to have a stable life, what is the likelihood that they are going to go back to jail? It's so small. It's so small. And if ultimately the goal is public safety, you've created it.
Black and brown people in this country live daily with the terror of a system created with a racist agenda that's never been dismantled. If America is to be a country of justice, the rights written in law must apply to everyone.
My son is Black, and the simple fact is that he has a 1 in 3 chance of going to jail and a 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by the police because of the color of his skin. I want him, to be able to just walk down the street with a group of his friends, and act like a kid. That's my wildest dream, which doesn't feel like it should be a wild dream, but really still is.
Justice is about breaking down the systems and the structure that oppress and deny, and recreating and reimagining systems that open the doors. That's all that anybody really wants is family and opportunity and loved one and some security. And that's really what justice is a system that's open to everybody to live that kind of life.